struggling. Hi, hello, how art thou on this glorious Wednesday morning? Woo! Tell me don't know what day it is without telling me you don't know what day it is. Oof. It's Wednesday. And it's funny because yesterday I was like, Tuesday? My friend was like, wow, I wish I could not even know what day it was. I was like, I knew it was Tuesday, and today I just forgot. So you may think that I'm drinking tea, and I guess you could say that I am, but it is wine in this cup. Because it's never too early. Anyway, so today is the new moon Aquarius, which means that it is also Chinese Lunar New Year. I wonder what happens in a year where there are two new moons in Aquarius. I mean, the first one is probably, New Year, and the second one is, I don't know, just another new moon, right? I'm trying to get on Time Nomad to see where these planets are in terms of how close the moon is to the sun. Ooh, so it's it's happened. So as of now, according to Time Nomad, the moon is like a good 10 minutes beyond the sun. See that? Sun at 9:52, moon at 10:03. So, happy Lunar New Year. 25, 27, 28. Venus, Neptune, North Node. Saturn at 17, all in Pisces. Pluto and Mercury conjuncting. Pluto at basically 2 degrees, a degree, 58 minutes. Mercury at 2 degrees, 18 minutes. So they're 20 minutes apart. So that's what a little Pisces Aquarius stellium. And then South Node in Virgo, of course. Mars in Cancer at 21 degrees. Still retrograde. Jupiter at 11 degrees of Gemini retrograde. I'm having a Jupiter return. Whoa, okay. And then Uranus, 23 degrees retrograde Taurus. So Uranus and Mars are pretty tight-ish. But that is what, square? No, not even, because it's 9, 10 degrees. And this is at 23 degrees. So it is trining Jupiter, though. Jupiter retrograde, Black Moon Lilith is in Libra at 23 degrees, so that's still kind of far. Anyway, yeah, so happy Chinese Lunar New Year. I'm happy. What is it? Gong Shi Fa Cai? Gong Hei Fa Choi? One or both of those. Probably not the best pronunciation. 4 minutes in. What are we doing today? So, I've been having this almost itch I've been having an almost itch to read on the Legacy channel because there's something that I thought of and I just feel like it fits the Legacy channel better than it necessarily fits over here. And there's still a part of me that feels ill-equipped through skill or tool to really read what I feel like is almost pulling me. I feel like my attention is almost gravitating towards something or being gravitated by something, if that makes sense. But it doesn't feel like I have the tools to see what that thing is. Now, I love surprises, so maybe I'll just leave it at that. I had an idea to use the devil, the tower, and maybe the star as significators for a challenge that may be lingering, a challenge overcome, and some light, some wish fulfillment, some reward for a challenge um, more overcame. Like something that is still lingering, something that we're completing, and something that, like, and maybe all in a sequence, right? And something that, like, the reward for having completed the thing. But because of the focus on, like, especially with the devil card, maybe with the challenge still being present, it didn't necessarily feel like Hierophant. And so then I had a thought to do the star, the moon, and the sun over here. And I still wanted to use, I'll probably combine these in terms of, like, maybe use the either the anchor in the conflict or an engine anchor in conflict from the story engine, but then like an advent. I think that's what they're called. Um, this isn't wrong. Yeah, an advent of like the future or a thing of the past. These are not regions. These are origins. So put these up here. Or an origin for the past, or even an attribute for the present. And I feel like when I've used these together, well, when I've used them, I like them, but I feel like I'm still trying to find the play with the tarot. Um, Not gonna lie, I was slightly tempted to buy a new card, but I feel a new deck, but I feel like it wouldn't help. Not that I necessarily like need to. Um, Again, not that I necessarily need to know, but I am kind of getting a little bit of an itch, you know. So I also had the idea too. Let's get this back a little bit. Like getting the framing today feels like extra laborious, honestly. I was trying to like not get all the dishes in the frame. There we go. That works, I guess. And then I scoot this way a little bit. I don't know. I don't want to take up too much time. Maybe I should start time stamping these, you know? I don't know. Anyway. This is actually kind of good. And it's a medium dry, so I'm kind of surprised that I like it, honestly. I'm maturing. Maybe we can just sit in silence together. And I do so many videos live that it kind of sort of just is what it is. Like, there's no process that happens off camera necessarily. Unless I have like a solid idea, which I kind of do. Maybe I'll just go with that. Um, so the origin will be Year of the Dragon. The present moment will be this moment of transition, which is the attribute. I was thinking attribute, but I was like, I don't think so. The attribute is of the present moment, and then the advent is of the future. So, like later into the year of the snake. And I wanted to do multiple. We'll see. We'll do like a main one. Again, it feels like it's almost too structured or too rigid to work over here for, but maybe not. I'm gonna have to tend to these flowers today. Add it to the list of things that I now do. So I kind of want to pull the aspects: young, vast, chilling, greedy, precious, divine, humble, and fiery. I could always use an aspect for like a tarot card or something. Fragile, cursed, blessed, keen. And we'll just like see what side, you know? I like hardly ever, rarely know what I'm doing over here or anywhere. So we get the conflicts. Maybe I'll do two conflicts. There's a conflict of the past and a conflict of the future, right? And not all the conflicts are like necessarily like bad. Um, the anchor will happen in the present moment, and also the engine will happen in the present moment. I'm not going to get an agent necessarily. I'm not feeling it. So I'll use the conflict, the engines, and the aspects. Conflicts, engine, aspects, and anchors from the story engine, and then I'll use the attribute, the origin, the attribute, origin, and advent, past, present, and future from the other one. Wants to connect with family through, or wants to end a family obligation to. The engine sort of came out on the side, so in between, which I feel like could be both. It's almost giving me like an ancestral and deeply ancestral energy. Like there's one ancestral energy that is something that may be like a generational curse or something like that. Something that's been a desire for generations, but that like hasn't happened for whatever reason. But it feels like the deeper ancestral energy is one of like abundance or something like that, right? And so it's this like, or a future ancestral energy is one of abundance, and the portal, the gateway, the doorway, the introduction of abundance to one's generational line, like it starts with them. And so they're like trying to remove one thing, but also connect to something else, which is kind of the energy of the octopus as it came out for me in the Patrick alchemy. I think it was the collective facing alchemy of Patrick when I did that one reading on the Legacy channel. It was like alchemy of me, alchemy of the collective, alchemy of like me facing the collective, alchemy of the collective facing me. So it's interesting because, yeah. All right. And then I just need to get the three tenses from this deck. Maybe I should have kept that out. It could also be an energy that's almost like these are four. Okay. Shaped by landslides, site of an infamous heist, former habitat of an extinct species, former trading hub. It could also be this energy of maybe not necessarily, well, kind of sort of both, an energy of merging ancestries. So, like, let's say that we as people have multiple incarnations, but we're not necessarily bound to the same family in every incarnation. So, in different incarnations, we've had different ancestral inheritances, both good and bad, right? But there's also like the soul inheritance from us being who we were created to be. And then there's like a current inheritance. I mean, honestly, it was more so like ancestral and soul, or it was like current inheritance and soul. But it's almost like in the process of DNA healing or replication, it's like there's a split, an addition or a reading or whatever, and then the strand like comes back together. So it's like the part that wants to cleave obligation opens up for a greater connection or into as an integration point. And so it's almost this like, where does this grand celestial cosmic whatever divine uniquely me fit into the story of my ancestry? And for some it doesn't at all, and there's a complete sort of like swapping, I guess, or denial of one for the other. A card flipped over in here. I'm going to look at the one that faces down if I can find it. There it is. Known for bookmaking. Okay. Come through, bookmaker. But this is like currently known for bookmaking. Also on this card, multicultural. I love that it's multicultural. Oh, and maybe the known for bookmaking. Okay, well, I'll read the other ones. Rich or unusual soil, and then home of a prized horse breed. I also love the rich or unusual soil because it's giving me cooled magma. And I think we've seen the volcano recently. I know I've seen the volcano recently. Um, this known for bookmaking and this multicultural aspect, it could be almost like an Akashic alchemy where we learn to become a greater amalgamation of us, or even in a more grounded sense, like this could be us having maybe like living multiple lives. Like we go to work and it's one thing, with our friends and family, it's another thing. And then there's also like a hobby or something that we're personally interested or invested in. And it's finding these moments or opportunities of greater overlap between them rather than keeping them so like separate. But in the bookmaking, it's almost like if you think of authorship as, you know how like you'll make a vision board where you'll take magazine clippings or something like that. It's like instead of pinning every word in the story, you kind of like take the words from multiple sources. And on one hand, you could say, well, like that's not really authoring or whatever because you're using these other things. But it kind of is because it's a whole new story, even if the words are borrowed from whatever. Right? The dominant cultural group is rewriting history to cover up a recent scandal, a past wrong, or ongoing injustice. On the other side is the sighting of a rare creature making headlines. We actually saw that one. Cool. We saw that one on this channel last time, right? All right. So these are the advents. Everything is shuffled. I think I'll just pull off the top. I kind of want to run through the signs. I only realistically have like 2 or 3 hours. Maybe I could run through modalities. Maybe I could do a few and do some more another day. Or maybe I could just like do pick 1, 2, 3, or 4, and however many we get through, right? Let's see if Siri can do complex things. Hey Siri, roll a d4.
Rolling is 4 this time.
Okay, Siri can roll multi-sided dice. Cool. So we're gonna do four. So here you can pick a number one, two, three, or four, and I will timestamp this as I go along. And I'm literally just gonna pull off the top of these. I still need to shuffle the tarot, but one, two, three, four. Now, since it is four, I could do it by element, but I'm not necessarily feeling it by element. So we're just going to do one, two, three, or four. So I should probably type it maybe. Um, what did I say we're doing? I want two conflicts, a conflict of, you could say, Year of the Dragon, and a conflict of the Year of the Snake. Right. And then the anchor is, I wanted an anchor and an engine for the current moment that is the transition between the two. This is so weird. So the Queen of Swords is at the bottom of the deck. The Ace of Pentacles is behind her. The Fool is behind that. Cool, love it. But I almost saw her sword as like a fold in the card. Now, but her hand is extended beyond the fold. That fold is giving me a veil energy or something of like transdimensionality, or you could say timeline jumping or whatever. And so last time we had the Ridge of the Hunters, and it was this not necessarily recruitment, it was a sort of invitation to go beyond the veil. And it almost feels like, well, I guess that would be a whole other world on the other side of this like portal. So she's giving the wardrobe in the Chronicles of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's like this portal on Earth to another world. And again, like she's like reached beyond the fold, reached beyond the veil. I almost want to say to the unformed lands because it's so cloudy in the Queen of Swords. And the unformed lands could just be the Eight of Pentacles is face up. The unformed lands could just be like the realm of all that is in the process of manifestation. That which has been asked for, manifested, or exists within the liminal realm of creation, but is yet to materialize or be given physical form. Oh, okay. Chatty, chatty. Now the Queen of Wands is here with her black cat and her sunflower. Bottom of the deck is the Three of Swords. Um, that's giving me an energy that is almost very like beyond the veil or in those unformed lands. There is something incredibly bright about it. And so shadows are almost like exaggerated. So with the Queen of Swords, it's like to keep one's shadow or to keep one's ego in check, um, which is like very much like what the King of Cups last time and the Nine of Cups and the hook that's manifesting our desires and how we want to keep untruths away from that. But instead of it being a hook that's going into the unformed lands, because that's what they're called today, apparently, instead of a hook going into the unformed lands to manifest the heart's desire. And like the heart is the one fishing in the unformed lands for something. The character themselves are entering the unformed lands. So it's almost like an additional caution that need to be like heeded or taken. it doesn't necessarily feel, I almost want to say it doesn't necessarily feel entirely appropriate. It doesn't necessarily feel like something that we have to consciously worry about if we're at a point where we don't have to consciously worry about it. So cool. Maybe we are getting there somehow. All right. So I'll timestamp one at 25:30, I guess. One, the first, at least over here, I would say one is always the guinea pig, but honestly, everyone is a guinea pig because they're not necessarily all the same. They have different vibes. So, like I said, if this is where you join me, me, me of the future, I'm just kidding, or anyone who comes upon this and just uses the timestamp. I'm gonna pick. I'm gonna draw. I've already shuffled the story engine aspect, conflicts, anchors, and engines, and then I've shuffled the deck of worlds is advents, attributes, and origins. Origins are of the past. Advents are of the future. Attributes are of the present. And I want to draw two conflicts: a conflict for the year of the dragon, a conflict for the year of the snake, or a conflict for before this moment and a conflict for in the future. Right. And then I'll draw an anchor and an engine for the present moment that is like the motivator, that is sort of, now the motivator could have arisen out of the previous conflict and will carry us through or be our introduction to the next conflict. The motivation could have existed before the previous conflict. Um, so yeah, I'm actually gonna re-timestamp this because I'm probably not gonna be able to put it that way every single time. So we'll leave this in the general part and we'll change your timestamp to like 27:17 because that should be roughly accurate. And it is. Now it's 27:17. Welcome, number one. So if you pick one, two, three, or four, if from one, two, three, or four you chose one, then, or if you're just watching, then here we go. So the conflict for actually, I think I want a tarot card for the year. Oh, and it flipped over immediately. For the year of the dragon, the card is the Six of Swords, which I love. The Year of the Dragon was all about. The Year of the Dragon was an 8 year that bridged into a nine, right? From 2024 to 2025. Although, in a strictly lunar calendar, it would all be the same year, which is the Year of the Dragon. I don't remember where the dragon placed. I think I heard someone say that, I think it was Queen Cup, who said that the dragon placed later in the race because something went down and the dragon like helped out. Ooh, ooh, sorry. This is the year of sequels that some I've been waiting for, some I didn't expect, and it was a news, gaming news about one of the sequels I'm waiting for. Chinese Zodiac Order. I don't need the full story. I just need the order: rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake. So dragon is the fifth. Rooster is the 10th. I'm a rooster. Uh, yeah. Rat, ox, tiger, rabbit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it was a 5 year. Now we're going into the sixth. Even in a five, there's something about the year of the dragon that was about momentum and movement and progression. Now, with the Six of Swords, there's almost, I think they're like fleeing. with only the clothes on their back. And this ferryman is ushering them, taking them to, ferrying them to the other side of the water. But this isn't, I don't know, it doesn't matter what it isn't. It's interesting to me that this card is like on the water. So it feels like the year of the dragon almost in its entirety was a year in transition, or was an energy in transition from one thing to another. Like the entire journey has been on the water. And so maybe there's been opportunities to not get so deep into, to like remove oneself from emotionally dense environments or situations, or to give oneself the tools to be able to bring clarity or levity to a thing, a situation, maybe multiple, where they're not as emotionally like sticky. And it makes me think of the, on the Legacy channel, it was like the cohesive power of water, and how sometimes it's like if we are in movement but we have to cross water, it's like all of these things can rise up emotionally to an extreme. It would be something like a trigger, but it feels like there's almost this subconscious, what would be something like programming, like these subconscious patterns that we kind of sort of fall into based off of emotional sort of reactions to things, even if the reactions aren't extremely emotional, because it does feel like there can be a subtlety to it. But it's just interesting again that like there's like, it's not approaching land, it isn't freshly set off. I mean, it could be, it's one card in this deck, in this style in particular. um but yeah, it's just interesting. It feels like the whole year was about movement or some kind of progress or some kind of transition, and it started in transition. Like it started in transition, it ended in transition. It's almost like there was never any land, or maybe never meant to be any land. So the stability and the a feeling of security and stuff, we almost have to derive from within, because it feels like there wasn't much, or it wasn't intended for there to be much to anchor to externally. Not that it was necessarily meant to be chaotic, but it just like wasn't much to anchor to externally. So the conflict here, that they will have to break a societal rule. So breaking societal rules. The other side is they will have to break a personal rule. So it's not breaking personal rules, it's breaking societal rules. Societal rules maybe being more of like expectations, or it could be obligations. Um, the origin of this, because it is the past, shaped by years of foreign occupation. So the rule of the society that's being broken, again, that's why it's not a personal rule, it's a societal rule. But even amongst societal rules, there are rules of like one's own culture or belief system, and then there are rules of like a governing culture or belief system, or something that we happen to fall into. With the connotation of the Six of Swords, it's almost like the year of the dragon. I mean, the year of the dragon did hold Pluto's final um, retrograde into Capricorn. So it initiated Pluto's official time in Aquarius. Um, but it's almost, oh, I was going somewhere with that. Oh, the whole like uniqueness and finding like what is ours versus what is like what isn't ours, right? Now, let's go to the year of the snake. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to pull an advent to get into the future. The dominant cultural group is rewriting history. Now it's at the top. And again, it's the opposite of the sighting of a rare creature is making headlines. We literally just saw this at the bottom of the deck. There's a lot of like society and culture, societal and cultural influence. And it's interesting. So when was saying that, like, there is no land, so there's nothing to externally anchor to, I guess I wasn't necessarily feeling it in this way. But maybe it's a realization. It could have been realizations of like not having these something of society to anchor to because of like a value misalignment, right? Cool. I think I'll try to take a picture and make it the thumbnail if I can get them like arranged in a cute way. The Year of the Snake. Oop, there we go. It came out. It landed on the top half of this advent, which was the sighting of a rare or magical, mythical, mystical creature. It's the Four of Pentacles. I think, I could be wrong. Maybe it's the rat and not the snake, and their association with like greed or something. Chinese zodiac greed. Quick witted, clever, charming, sharp, and funny, excellent taste, good friend, generous, and loyal to others, considered part of its pack, motivated by money, can be greedy. That's the rat. Okay, I don't necessarily have to dive into the negative side of the snake or any sign. This Four of Pentacles came out recently. Anyway, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe there's this feeling in the Year of the Snake because the Year of the Dragon is reading as so fluid or in motion that it's almost like for a sailor or for a person who is used to being at sea, it's one thing. But for a landlubber to be on open water for a year, it's like wherever you land, you kind of want to stay. This is Capricorn. That's Aquarius. The Six of Swords is a card of Aquarius. The Four of Pentacles is a card of Capricorn. Um, which is interesting because Pluto just left Capricorn. So I don't know if it's almost like a reformed sort of Capricorn energy. Like now that Capricorn has been reformed because Pluto has finished its transit in Capricorn, and now Pluto is focused slash working on or working with Aquarius, it's almost like Capricorn feels safe. So that could be something that's almost like whatever you land on, especially take it as it resonates. Um, but it could be a time of finding things that have the potential to last for a while. I don't think it necessarily, this Four of Pentacles has to necessarily be miserly. Um, the conflict of, I want this one, but they will have to push a friend away. Oof. Maybe so. It's not necessarily miserly in nature. It could be something as simple as like knowing, because again, it's almost feeling like after a year of being lost at sea, now that land is found. After like so much of like transition and movement, a desire for some kind of stability, and then to find it. But there could be people, habits, patterns, things of yesterday that sort of like chip away or eat away at that stability, that are detrimental towards that stability. So it could be a case where it's like you have to, it's like in order to preserve your peace or to create something, there's some things that need to change. And again, a friend doesn't have to be a person. It could be like a coping mechanism or something that used to bring someone comfort. But again, I was kind of sort of thinking about this, I think yesterday. It was on the Legacy channel, I believe. I think it's when I used this deck. So it was probably the last video on the Legacy channel or the one most current to today's date. um, where it was an energy of like someone who's really attracted to something, but after they get it, they get insecure. And so they try to change the thing. It was because it was when the Delta went to, when the what, landmark, when the region went from a Delta to a marsh. And it's like everything that made the Delta fertile and abundant and such a great place to live, when it was under new management, like they stripped it of all those things. So now, of course, it's not this abundant, fertile, amazing place to live. And, but it was kind of, so first it was like the person, like there's someone who's like really confident and like hot and like Queen of Wands energy, and someone else is attracted to them. But after they get in a relationship or after they get comfortable with each other, like the insecurities of the other person start to come out, and then they try to change that Queen of Wands energy. And so now it's different. But it was almost like that could also be us with the things that we're manifesting, or us with this energy of the future. The things that we're coming into may require certain things of us. At the very least, it may require us to not self sabotage. And so, if we want these amazing, life changing, beautiful, whatever things to remain as mind blowingly aligned and awesome as they are, we can't be the ones that are like, okay, well, I can't do this or I can't do that, or I'm going to need you to accommodate me in this way or that way. That is reflective of like an older version of self, or a self that is not like a vibrational match. It's the easiest way to say it. The easiest, and I feel like at this point, most cliched way to say it. And so that's what I'm kind of feeling here with the Four of Pentacles, but they will have to push a friend away. The abundance or the change that the year of the snake is bringing, especially after the transition of the year of the dragon. It's like the year of the dragon almost, if there is a seamlessness to this, if there's connection between these two energies, then the year of the dragon was preparing us for all of this in the year of the snake, or beyond, whenever we reach that point where it actualizes, right? When it goes from the unformed lens to reality. There are some changes that we may have to make. So maybe we'll have to be more proactive, or maybe we can't be so quick to be so shy or not contribute or give our input. Um, yeah. So then the Advent card. Oh, it's on the side. Thought I was being clever. They are declaring independence from their former rulers, a nation, monarch, or company. And an invasive species is taking over the ecosystem, a plant, pest, or scavenger. So we're kind of sort of in between an invasive species taking over an ecosystem and declaring independence from a former ruler. This is such an interesting energy. I feel like there are so many things I don't necessarily have to like worry about or say on the higher side because the audience is smaller, the reach is smaller, so it's a little bit more, whatever. But there is an almost, I guess it's like, so although the year of the snake may ask us to be in a sort of energy where we don't allow for past whatever or previous whatever to keep us from manifesting, actualizing, maintaining our heart's desires. But we also don't want to necessarily like dominate other spaces either, right? So, like, as we're seeking to break away from previous environments, situations, version of self, whatever, also we need to be mindful that we are good stewards and cooperative, generative um, aspects in a new space, and that we're not just like claiming, and it's almost like it almost feels like or almost reads like a brand of sovereignty that doesn't acknowledge the sovereignty of others, especially if it's a space that is shared, cohabitated, or that is like where there are other people, right? Like it's not necessarily for our situation to change in such an amazing way, but then for us to be insufferable to others. Because then that would be a good way to end up in maybe more of a shadowy negative energy of the Four of Pentacles. That's more miserly. And that is an energy that invites rot and decay and stagnation. I almost wanted to say stasis, but stagnation. So it's a careful balance to play. Now, in Origin, which is a card of the past that takes this back or reflects back on the um, Year of the Dragon, is shaped by agricultural development, which I love because it kind of sort of is like, yes, the Year of the Dragon, part of what the energy of the Year of the Dragon was to cultivate us, shape us, mold us, grow us into one that is capable of like putting down roots here. And again, it's like, it's that same energy. If a place is so nice or cool or whatever because of the vibe or the environment or the people who are there, then it's important that those people feel as free to continue being who they are. Because otherwise, if we come in and invade and change everything to fit us, it's gonna take away from what makes a place or an energy so special, which again feels like it will eventually lead to rot, decay, stagnation. Now, I think it's almost like, if someone's really nervous or excited and they like talk a lot, and so they kind of like bulldoze conversations or whatever, it doesn't necessarily feel intentional. It could almost be easy for it to almost be like a coping mechanism that's maybe not necessarily great. So again, like the self-conscious, insecure person who goes after a Queen of Wands energy, it's like maybe we get into this new space and for some reason we feel inferior or we feel like we're not good enough. There's some kind of imposter syndrome. And so now, as like a defense mechanism, we kind of sort of turn toxic in whatever way. Either we shy away, turn invisible, never contribute, never say anything. And so we kind of sort of like fade out of that energy. Or on the opposite side, we try to dominate and domineer and put others down to make ourselves feel big. Um, Either way, it's like it's non-harmonious to that energy, and there will be some kind of expulsion or brought decay, stagnation, death. Either we're going to be ejected or the space will start to like die. The energy will start to die. Um, I feel like though, like the breaking of societal rules, the seeing oneself, even though the one's environment may have been shaped by years because of a foreign occupation, it feels like again, part of the year of the dragon was to prepare us for the blessings of the year of the snake. And so a lot of that, like, if it is the insecure thing, then the year of the dragon would have provided us opportunities for us to know the truth of how capable or whatever we are. So that when we step into spaces, we don't have to feel like imposters. Or even if we do feel like imposters, we have resources or previous experience to go, like, wait, actually, like I've done this, I've done that. Like I'm not an imposter. I do deserve this. Um, so now this engine that is motivating from the previous challenge to the next is what? Wants to steal or steal from. I dropped it, I picked it up, wants to stop the theft of. Okay, that was interesting. So I picked it up this way and then it fell on the table and I picked it up this way. Which way do I take it? I think this all comes down to the self. And like if it's this wants to steal or wants to steal from, that is the motivation, then that would be like because of the lack of an anchor or because of the turbulence, maybe, or the constant, again, the constancy of being at sea when maybe we're not used to it, of the year of the dragon, again, it would lead to more of the shadow side of the Four of Pentacles with that wants to steal or steal from. Then that is a desire to like create a stability regardless of the cost and to whom, like who pays it. But on the other side, wants to stop the theft of, now that plays more into the side of the Four of Pentacles that I'm more focused on. That was like the having to push a friend away. So it's ways in which we continue to be the self that knows that we're deserving of the things that are coming our way. And so we're not going to allow ourselves to self sabotage, and we're not going to allow, to the extent that we can, others to sabotage to prevent the theft of this energy. The attribute here is known for music. I'm not exactly sure. Oh, there's also an anchor. Okay. The anchor is an instrument. An instrument known for music. Cool. I probably should have. Oh, well, I think this is either way. An instrument known for music. Wants to steal an instrument known for music, or wants to stop the theft of an instrument known for music. I'll put this on its side so we kind of sort of know the bothness of it. I'm like trying to. Oh, this is almost like the hill. The hill that we have to cross to go from the what was it, the archive of the sun to the valley. No, to go from the swamp to the delta. There was like the hill. So if this is an attempt to steal an instrument known for music, it feels like there is a lack of a realization that something comes from within. So this could be like seeking something external, even though from the on the open waters of the Six of Swords of the Year of the Dragon, and it feels like it was almost like the whole entirety of the Year of the Dragon. Like within the Year of the Dragon, it's almost like there was nothing external to anchor to, or we were losing external anchors because, as part of this process of moving towards the blessings of the Year of the Snake, we're supposed to be grounded within self. And we're supposed to be able to like manage our own emotions and internal workings and conflicts and whatever, so that we can remain human but still get to where we're going. And I say remain human, like so that we don't have to be perfect. We can have an off day or a thought that maybe whatever, but again, we don't allow that to take away from what is here and or what is coming. Right? Just like with breaking up the whatever the hook might attach to, we can like move those things out of the way so that the hook finds something pleasurable or desirable. But again, so if this is like, well, I'm going to do what someone else is doing, or I need this, or I need that in order to like be happy or successful, or to get this Year of the Snake thing, that's trying to steal an instrument known for music. Because it's not the instrument that makes the music, it's the person who's using it. The instrument is just a tool. The musician makes the music. Right. And there could be a tool that a musician is known to use, but again, it's not the instrument. Like the instrument produces the music, but it's almost like in that case, the instrument is the channel or the medium through which through which music is communicated. Music is born before the instrument within the heart, mind, or whatever creative organ of the musician. It's easier to read the wants to steal an instrument, wants to prevent the theft of an instrument. I mean, I guess that could be like, let's say that things are going well. And again, this whole like, but they will have to push a friend away. It feels like by this point, it's always possible to self sabotage, but it feels like we wouldn't have to worry about self sabotaging as much because of everything that we've learned from the Year of the Dragon and beyond before. But it could be like I don't want to screw this next thing up. Or it could be like an almost hypervigilance. Like things are starting to turn around and we don't want to mess it up. We want to keep things on a good trajectory. And then we can kind of sort of like overly focus on it to the point where we kind of trip ourselves up. And we don't necessarily self sabotage, but we introduce a lot of confusion where there could be clarity, or we just like work way harder than we necessarily have to. It feels like in the present moment, if that is the case, then as time progresses and as we find our fit and as things solidify, then that hypervigilance will naturally diminish. It has the potential, the possibility to naturally diminish again. Um, but yeah, this is the first one. So I'm gonna take a picture. Maybe I'll try to fit like all four of these on the same thumbnail or not. We'll see. You know, I, in many things, I am not necessarily known for effort because I have this inherited from a Virgo father and an overly whatever Pisces mother. I have this inherited perfectionist streak, but I don't have the capability to get things as perfect as I want them. So I just like give up, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get this to a point where it satisfies my perfectionism. So it is what it is. Bottom of the deck was the Three of Swords. Okay, so two, I'm going to say you start at 10200. 10200. Cool. So, two. If you don't know what we're doing, go to I can timestamp it. I think it was 2530. I'll just do explanation. 2530. If you don't know what's up, go to 2530, watch the catch up until Pod One starts, and then come back here. Because, like I said, I'm not going to be able to explain it like I did that time. So we're just going to go with that. Your conflict for the year of the dragon is, but they must reconcile with an old enemy. I didn't even get the energy. Yeah. I didn't get an aspect for the last one, but that's fine. What kind of enemy is this? A dire enemy. Oof. Because I was almost thinking, like, is this enemy like someone that's like nice? It's like, you know how sometimes if we're in a particular mood, we may not necessarily vibe with someone that's in a different mood, right? But because this old enemy is dire, it feels like it was at detriment to your health, healing, happiness, or whatever other H word you want to use. The origin is origin of a popular game or sport. Which is interesting. Is your old enemy someone who like was like some kind of, maybe it was like someone who had a lot of influence. There you go. This dire old enemy, again, it's dire because of how it contradicts or causes contention with your health, healing, happiness, whatever. But this old enemy was the origin of like, it's almost like they had a lot, like they were very charismatic or they had a lot of sway with people. And so, like, whatever this old enemy energy is, like, people just went with it. And so it's almost like it created more enemies, but the enemies that it created weren't, it's almost like their relationship to you, even if it is, was contentious or whatever, it's almost like it wasn't by, almost like it wasn't by malicious intent. More so, I don't want to say negligence. I think the thing here, though, is um, if this energy is truly in the past, I could see this being like, let's say you go to a new place, a new environment, you meet somebody new and they seem cool, but one day they say or do something that hurts you or that is incredibly offensive or rude. It feels like they may not necessarily know. They don't have the same intentionality as that old enemy energy may have had. And so it's almost like it's possible to trigger something. Now, some card just rotated. The Ace of Cups. Oof. Two of Cups is at the bottom of the deck. Um, this old enemy having the energy of the Ace of Cups is not great. This is a not great energy, honestly. And if you went through something like this, then obviously it's more not great for actually having experienced it than me just like getting the vibe, right? It feels like with this Ace of Cups, the challenge of the Year of the Dragon may have been one of like finding your tribe, finding who is safe to invest in, finding your people, finding people you can trust, and being able to differentiate them from people that you can't trust. Because this is the Ace of Cups, it feels like someone who had a significant, and maybe that's why this old enemy is dire. It feels like someone who had a level of access to you and maybe a level of your trust, and then they like all of a sudden maybe one day or over a period of time kind of got like ugly. And it's one of those energies where it's like, someone that you love and trust and feel that you can confide in, you tell them something, and then they turn around and use it against you, or they shame you for it and they try to use that as a weapon to tear you down. And it's almost like maybe it was something that you had never told anybody. And so it was this purely internal experience. But now, because you shared it with the vulnerability, it's also an external experience. And so it's like this attack on two fronts. If you were or are still at odds with yourself. Now, the advent that takes this into the future is the fate of a political prisoner is dividing the population. Um, this could be like if this is a person, and depending on how long you knew each other or how long you were together, there could have been like collateral in the resolution or dissolution of this relationship with this old enemy, regardless of what it is. It could be like a job, right? Like, let's say that you worked at a job for a while and there was this like family like energy atmosphere, but then all of a sudden one day, maybe it's new management or old management, you get let go or you don't get the promotion. Something happens and you feel like blindsided by it. You feel betrayed by it. And again, it's because of that connection that something cuts so deep. Um, but there's like collateral. So either like there are other people at the job, there are mutual friends if it is a person, And it's like to not work there anymore means that like maybe you like if you get fired, then you don't have a choice. If it's something like a promotion and you decide to walk because you don't feel valued or appreciated, then it's like if you leave, then you won't see like the people that you've seen for the past however many years, the coworkers that you've grown close to. And yes, there's social media and things like that, but the dynamic is going to be different when you're not spending 8 plus or minus hours together every day, right? And so this could produce, depending on, because I've been in like a job before where I really didn't like the work. I had a horrible manager at the time, but there were people that I really liked at that job, and they kind of sort of kept me there, right? So, like, if this is something that's almost like marital and you have kids to worry about, this population divide could be like your own internal pros and cons list. Like, yes, this is an environment that is detrimental to my mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health and well being, but because of this, that, and something else, I can't leave. Honestly, I am not necessarily feeling where you stand on this, which is fine because you know where you would stand on this, right? This Ace of Cups, too. And I feel like it's the energy of like this old enemy being the origin of a popular game or sport. It's because the Ace of Cups overflows. So, this is something that this old enemy energy could have impacted somebody in like multiple areas of their life, which is again the collateral energy of like the divided population because of the fate of a political prisoner. Okay, well, what is the energy of the year? The snake, the Two of Swords immediately. Now, in the intro, the Two of Swords, it feels honestly, admittedly, less so. But in the intro, the Queen of Swords was at the bottom of the deck, and it felt like she was reaching across a veil or a transdimensional bubble, reaching across timelines. Because of her sword, in that this Two of Swords feels like it's almost like stuck between two timelines. And these two timelines could be like your life. There's like the life that you live if you break away from the old enemy, and then there's the life that you live if you don't. But it's almost because it's like because a person can go back and forth within themselves, they almost like straddle both. So the energy is both there and not there. So it could be like low hanging fruit or like to 3Dify it. Like if it is a person like you break up, you get together, you break up, you get together, you break up, you get together. So they're both there and not there. There's something else about this Two of Swords. I feel like I don't know. I want to get an aspect for this Two of Swords. Oh my gosh, I shuffled it. I was just supposed to pull off the top. Well, everything is shuffled for 3 and 4. Fragile. This is the fragile, blessed, cursed king card that we actually saw when I was shuffling all the cards earlier. This Two of Swords is fragile. It almost feels like this is a choice and decision that has to, it's almost like the energy of a point that has to be reached within the self. It feels like there is not necessarily a shortage of encouragement to make a choice that would benefit one's health, healing, happiness, mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. But because the Ace of Cups, especially, the heart is invested in some way that makes, not only is the heart potentially invested, but again, there's also this collateral energy. And so it makes it difficult to just make one choice or the other. But it's a choice or it's a point that we have to reach within ourselves. So it's almost like there is no amount of signs, symbols, synchronicity, or encouragement to make this choice or that choice because internally we're sort of still going to waffle, right? So I just looked over. The whole thing about the Year of the Dragon was reconciling with an old enemy. I think I was just on the oh, I got stuck on the old enemy part of reconciling with an old enemy. But I think the reconciliation again, reconciliation is going to be different. If a reconciliation happens where you and the old enemy, you and the person, you and the employer move forward together, maybe there's a conversation that's had and you both get on the same page. And everything of the Year of the Dragon and what the Year of the Snake is going to ask of you is to have that conversation and to be open and honest. Now, you may have to confront your own, we may have to confront our own fears around like vulnerability, especially if our vulnerability was taken advantage of in the past. But it's like that would be necessary to sort of like reach a point. Now, if you don't continue forward with the job, person, whatever, old enemy, excuse me, then reconciliation may be something more like forgiveness. And I saw this thing on Instagram yesterday. I think somebody liked it or shared it, or maybe it popped up in my reels. I don't remember. But it was a guy talking. Excuse me. It showed up, and one of my friends had liked it. Um, it was, I think, a pastor or a guy giving a TED talk, and it was about forgiveness. And he was like, let's say that something happens in your life and you're like, you know what, I'm not going to forgive you, and he picks up one weight. Something else happens, I'm not going to forgive you, and he picks up this other weight, and he keeps picking up these weights. And he was like, we may say that we forgive and this and that, but if we're still holding on to the weight, it still weighs us down. And the whole point was forgiveness is for you so that you don't continue to carry the weight of something. And that could be this reconciliation. And it doesn't necessarily have to involve a conversation. It can. Aquarius, I guess, is an air sign, and it's all about communication. The snake is probably about communication in some way, regardless, right? Um, it can, but it doesn't necessarily have to, especially depending on the severity of the situation, right? And so maybe in that case, this fragile two of swords, in either case, the fragile two of swords, if it is you giving someone or something, an old enemy, another chance, it could be a period of time of reestablishing trust, which can be difficult. um, but on the path of like forgiveness, it's like you could be almost fragile coming out of the previous timeline and going into the next. And this timeline, again, it's like it's the timeline with the old enemy and it's a timeline without the old enemy. Or a timeline with the old enemy as an enemy versus a timeline with the old enemy as a reconciled friend or whatever. It's just like new. So maybe the Two of Swords and this fragility is something that has its roots in the Year of the Snake. It's established in the Year of the Snake, but it may not necessarily be as stable. Maybe it'll take some time to settle, right? So the advent that is this future is a populist leader is gaining power through dangerous rhetoric. Oof. Well, how does that work? I mean, with this fragile two of swords. Excuse me. Resulting in civil conflict, fear of outsiders, or indoctrination. I think it's almost more of that indoctrination and fear of outsiders. So, again, going back to an earlier example of, let's say that something was done with an intentional malice at one point, but in the future, it's just like an ignorance or lack of understanding. And like ignorance in the true sense of the, just like not knowing, like someone or something new that doesn't know the details of your past and the associations that you have because of it. And so they just wouldn't know that something may upset you. And so I don't want to say it's a need, but maybe there may be opportunities to experience a vulnerability acknowledged and honored rather than a vulnerability that is taken advantage of. Um, and, or even if it's just like people, as we have a different experience with whatever that old enemy was in this fragile two of swords period where we're kind of sort of like straddling both and where we're learning to maybe be open again, or where we're learning that there are people that we can trust, or we're learning that there are still corporations or managers or bosses that value the kind of loyalty that you have to whatever job or position. Um, it's like be careful or be mindful. It's like allow, always use your intuition and discernment, always, but allow for your world, allow for your narrative and your story to be rewritten. Allow yourself the opportunity to find people who will honor your vulnerability and who will share in it. Or allow like precious friends to exist, or the energy of a precious friend to exist where there once was a dire enemy. So it's like be careful of falling prey to your own dangerous rhetoric about all this or like that or nobody, whatever, because it may not be true. I feel like I'm missing a card. Oh, the challenge. I didn't get the conflict. I was like, I feel like I'm missing a card. But they will have to keep a terrible secret, is the conflict of the earth snake. Um, this could, like, this terrible secret could be the energy. Let's say that your intuition and discernment is telling you that something that is new and different, and that it is not whatever your old enemy was. And so you go into it. The keeping of this terrible secret, again, it could be the internal process that you're going through as you are navigating from one series or pattern of experiences to, excuse me, a new and or different series or pattern of experiences. It's the like the internal shift of like, which may call into question some of the things that you deeply believed about whatever. It could be that. Or it could be like you not necessarily wanting to speak of previous experiences because of how you think people may perceive you. Like maybe it's almost like in my mind the type of person that doesn't want to be pitied. And so because they don't want to be pitied, they don't talk about the things that they've been through. Like they don't want their past to color who they are in the present and what they're capable of moving forward into the future. So a lot of stuff they just don't say. Maybe keeping this terrible secret doesn't have to be a burden. Maybe it's just like it's not like you don't need to tell people what you've gone through in order to find like a kindness or whatever. Right. Almost like sometimes, sorry, I'm just looking at the time. I think I got about, oh, it's almost 3. Okay. I have a little bit of time. Um, Almost like it's not necessary. Maybe, I don't want to say maybe it was in the past, but it's almost like maybe you only got kindness or compassion from people when they knew your situation and circumstances because, like, who wouldn't be compassionate, kinder, or more gentle? Um, but it may not be necessary because whatever you're moving into, it's like the energy is already kind, compassionate, caring, and gentle. And that's why you may choose to keep a terrible secret because you know that it doesn't color or affect you in the now. So, the origin that this connects back to is birthplace of a world religion. I feel like that just speaks to um, the kind of experiences you had in the past. The experience you had that made you or makes you, because You're the Snake is literally just starting, that makes you believe the things in the way that you believe. And again, this terrible secret could be the reason why you came to the belief that something must be something. The attribute of the present moment is known for rare gourds. Okay. Known for rare gourds. The engine it's on the side, wants to betray or betray someone with, and wants to deliver justice with or for. And the anchor is a nation. Wants to betray a nation or wants to deliver justice with or for a nation. This to me reads as almost very like sometimes in order to save a nation, you must betray a nation. Or like in order to save a person, you must betray a person type of energy. Um, but this could be deeply internal. So, like, as you are allowing for a different narrative or a different story or for a different sequence, pattern, or kind of event, circumstance happening. It could be this feeling of like betraying your past self, betraying your past beliefs, right? Because what occurred in the past, it birthed almost a whole religion, which is like just very core, intense beliefs. But in order to experience something different, you have to allow for those things to be challenged. So it's almost like betraying, it's not even a version of self, really. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And I remember for a while when I was on the cusp of being intentional about facing and addressing all of the things in my life that I had to. I'm weird. But I remember there were times where it felt like if I dedicate myself to happiness or if I start to pursue things to actually like handle and address and move forward in my life, like it almost felt like a betrayal to the past version of self that just suffered and that refused any kind of actual substantial help because of the attachment to the pain and the fear. And so for a hot minute, it was like, I know I could do this, but like, what about that previous version of myself? Like, what about the me that like just cried himself to sleep like night after night in a depressive spiral or whatever? Like, at one point, it felt like helping myself would be betraying a previous version of myself. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that, obviously. Um, but it is kind of, again, like in order to open up to an experience that is different from all that you've already experienced, um, you have to allow for those beliefs to be challenged. Now, a nation known for rare gourds, maybe gourds are significant or important to you in some way. They hold little significance to me besides, like, I think maracas. Was it like hollowed out gourds or dried gourds and you leave the seeds inside and you can shake them? But I guess, oh, and it's funny because the last one was an instrument known for music. Um, but it's almost also giving me the energy of like, um, as you like shake a maraca or as you shake something, there's like something else is being broken loose. Like as you beat the drum, something is being bust up so that you can like move through it or handle it easier. And so maybe there is a company, person, energy that is known for helping, assisting, hiring, whatever, like people of a certain background and like giving them opportunities or like being the first that someone, it's almost like a person who's a gateway person. Like, let's say there's like this really nice, caring individual that meets, comes upon people with terrible secrets, but that are seeking something different. Like, that could be the first nice person that they meet, the person that like restores their faith in humanity, or the person that causes them to begin to question their old beliefs. And then after that one person, because they now know that it's possible, or they're starting to believe or think that it may be possible, there's like all of these other people and all of these other experiences that validate that. So this nation, that is known for its rare gourds could be an external force that is assisting with an internal motivation. And it could be she's she's almost giving me like Underground Railroad, but in terms of like there's a series of opportunities and people that will lead you out of that old way of thinking, that will validate the presence of like kind people, caring people, businesses, managers, corporations that are actually like invested in the future in very not only sustainable but substantial ways. So by the time you make it to like the North or Canada, like, you're not in the South anymore. It's almost that energy. And it's to help move you through. Again, something at present is to help solidify, to continuously solidify throughout the year of the snake. So that maybe by the end of the year of the snake, you've had a year of experiencing things different. And a lot can happen in a year, let alone like a day or a week or a month or an hour or sometimes a minute, right? Almost like this is going to be an energy that is present with you while your faith or your being is still fragile. It's like something that, as it's exposed to the air, it like hardens. And so it's not like a mushy puddle thing anymore, or it like grows. So that's what I got for you. Number two. Who that? Now we're moving on to three. You see, look back in time. I just got what a memory notification from Google Photos. Where'd it go? New memory for you. Look back in time. So with that new memory for you, look back in time. Um, you may remember a time, a person, or an experience before this belief. It's almost like when, because of an incredibly traumatizing or potent experience, how, oops, we can just like mentally not even remember or recall things. But when you come out of it, then it's like, oh, like there were these things that were good that happened, or like this is what it was like before that thing happened, or something like that. So there's some kind of restoration that comes after that reconciliation. I know I'm thinking of chameleons and lizards. I don't think snakes can regrow their own tails, but it's giving me the energy of like a tail that's regrowing. Cool. So number three, we're gonna say that you are 139.05. Let's see if I can type fast enough for this to be 139.09. I'm changing it. And 139.09. It's closer. So if this is where you jump in, go to the explanation if you so desire, or just stick around for the ride. So we're going to get a card. It flipped over immediately for the Year of the Dragon. Your card is It's like all of these cards that flip, they flip so early that they're at like the bottom of the deck. And I still just scroll through from the top. Your Year of the Dragon was the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is giving me a steady, what immediately comes to mind is a steady climb, a steady progression, but it could be level. Well, if it's level, it could be like a steady progression. If there's some kind of verticality in the positive direction, it could be a steady climb. If there's a verticality in a negative direction, so like higher and lower, right? If it's positive, higher verticality, then you have to climb to get there. If it's lower, then it's a descent, a steady descent. Um, and any one of those can be like amazing, right? I actually want to get the energy of the snake too. So we're kind of going to build this um, on the parallel rather than like all of one and then all of the other. Rather than chronologically, we're going to build this on the parallel. So the snake for the year of the snake, please. For the year of the snake. I kind of want to get a nice coffee. Ooh, the King of Cups. Bottom of the deck is the Ten of Pentacles. Okay. I love it. Gorgeous. So your Year of the Dragon was the Knight of Pentacles. Your Year of the Snake is the King of Cups. And at the bottom of the deck is the Ten of Pentacles. Your steady dedication and effort is going to play off in big ways. But it feels like it feels like your presence throughout everything that's happened has also given you a sort of emotional stability that is grounded and rooted in you knowing your ability, capacity, capability to like show up or to continue to be dedicated to something. I love this. So, like I said, we're going to build in parallel. So, your anchor and engine in the present moment is a letter wants to expose the secret of a letter. This could be you wanting to like share or teach how you did it or what you've discovered in this time. It's almost like it's giving me the energy of something that's economy proof. There is something that does not rely upon external conditions. She's almost giving me the secret, almost like a vibe of the secret, right? Or like the author of a self help book, but in a way of like, this is something that truly legitimately like helped me through everything. And I believe that it could help others. I mean, in the book, it's like, I believe that it could help you, right? The person who purchased this, who is now reading these pages. Interesting. Wanting to expose the secrets of a letter. Okay. Well, since we're in the present moment, I'm going to get the advent for the Year of the Dragon and the origin for the Year of the Snake. So the past's future, which is like the present moment, and the future is past, which is like the present moment ish. The advent of the dragon is martial law has been declared to impose a curfew, a suspension of rights, or a mandatory conscription. Martial law has been declared. So, present circumstances in your environment could definitely compel you to want to share how to remain diligent or how to continue to push the needle forward, how to continue to remain grounded and sane and stable, regardless of what's happening externally. With this declaration of martial law, assuming that you aren't the person that is declaring these things into law, there is a certain 3D level of powerlessness, but it's like because you're not making those choices and decisions, and these could be choices and decisions that are enforced by others, but they're not yours to make. I don't want to, I feel like, because it feels like whatever secret that you want to expose is that, like, even if things are happening externally, it doesn't make you powerless. I don't know how to phrase that in another way. um, Even though you're not making certain choices and decisions, even though you may not control your environment, you are not powerless. And maybe it's because, again, you've been through maybe many things with this Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is almost giving me the energy of the Nine of Wands. Um, but the Nine of Wands is stationary, whereas the Knight of Pentacles is in movement, is moving, regardless of how fast or slow. Now, the past of the future is created as a trap. These martial laws were created as a trap. I mean, created as a trap, meaning they were created to produce some kind of effect within the populace, right? There are those who may be put into a state of fear or worry. There are others who may feel emboldened or empowered or whatever. It depends on which side of the law you sort of fall on, or whether you are an enforcer or an enforcee. Are you enforcing this new martial law, or is it being forced upon you or enforced against you? Do you have some kind of exemption, right? Because, some people say that folks with money don't necessarily live in the same legal world as folks without, you know. But this thing was created as a trap to make you feel powerless, but to make people feel powerless. But the Year of the Dragon has shown you, taught you explicitly to the point where it's given you this King of Cups level of confidence that the waters shall not rise so high that you drown. And you just sit and let the waters rise. Those waters will never touch my feet. It doesn't matter what dams are destroyed, what rains fall, because the King of Cups is the master of water. So water will not harm him or touch him if he doesn't want to be touched. Almost like if Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were masters of fire. So the fires that they were thrown into would not burn them. You know, I mean, you could say that God was the master of fire, and because of God's mastery, they weren't burned. But regardless, uh, yeah, interesting. Okay, so what's the nature of this trap? What's an aspect of this trap? Because I'm curious. A chilling trap. Interesting. What does chilling mean? I feel like chilling has such different connotations. When I hear chilling, though, to me, it's like bone chilling. Like that's the level of like frightened, or it's meant to scare and terrify. It's meant to terrify this trap, but you don't have to feel powerless to it. Cool. So now we go a layer down, right? So the past of the past is origin of an artistic masterpiece. Maybe this letter, maybe this expose that you're going to run is like your magnum opus. It could be, maybe you're feeling like it's your purpose. There is such a confidence with this King of Cups and the Year of the Snake. I would not be surprised if that's the case. I would not be surprised if that's the case, if you felt like this is your purpose. Or something in the Year of the Dragon. Maybe it turns you into a masterpiece. The future of the King of Cups, a sudden drought could have disastrous consequences, which is interesting because you're the King of Cups. So, whatever this trap is that is meant to frighten, like that's like literally, I was just talking about the King of Cups being having the mastery over water. No one can threaten you with drought when you are the master of water, because if you call for water, water will come. Again, and maybe this is why you don't feel powerless. Because with your power, you have like a power, sovereignty, authority. It's giving me, I think it is the ivory shield, power and authority of water. Yeah, because the archangel of healing is the angel who salves and purifies. So it's interesting that that Queen of Cups, ivory shield energy is kind of sort of here like this and not in her usual way. You can't be threatened with drought. You're the King of Cups. You're the Master of Water. And again, so this this chilling trap, the very thing that you have mastery over is what someone or something is trying to convince you you don't have. So it's like, oh, well, if you have mastery of water, we'll just limit your access to water. But if you call for water as the master of water, then a spring will appear from the earth, or rain will fall from the heavens, or like one way or another, water will come to fill that cup if you lift it up. It is interesting, though, that this sudden drought is the opposite of like the whole, it doesn't matter how high. And maybe that's the thing. The whole, like, it doesn't matter how high the waters rise, you will never drown. The water will not touch you if your mastery tells it not to. And maybe someone slash something kind of energetically knows that. And so instead of the route of like flooding or an over, like the invasive species almost type of energy, rather than that, they try to deprive, but it doesn't work. Interesting. Um, the challenge, the conflict. The conflict of the dragon is, but they will likely lose their life. I don't know what the year of the dragon has seen you through. I don't know if you had legitimate like thoughts of your own safety. That could also be a threat to like one's livelihood, though, right? Or a significant circumstance that like someone's life changing in a significant way, significantly impacted. Um, Again, with as dramatic as this is sort of coming out, I would not be surprised if that is the basis for that whole, like, it doesn't matter what your environment and situation is, you are never powerless, because there are these internal things, or there are these other things that others, that people, humanity, no human has control over. Man, woof. The conflict of the King of Cups is, but they will have to betray a friend. The opposite of that is, but they will have to learn to trust again. I thought we already had this, but they will have to betray a friend conflict. Oh no, we had, but they will have to push a friend away. That's what it was. Having to push a friend away. Okay. This, but they will have to betray a friend card is interesting for the King of Cups. Low hanging fruit here would be There are things that you can do for yourself and for your own life because you're never powerless. And there's information that you can give people. There are modalities that you can use to try to empower them. But at the end of the day, we all have to make that choice and decision within ourselves. We all have to take a certain stance or posturing or positioning within ourselves. There are certain things that cannot be done for us. And maybe that's a realization for this King of Cups. Maybe it's a realization you'll reach in the year of the snake, that there are certain things that you can't do for people, right? So it could be a trap that you don't fall into, but maybe others do. I don't I don't like that phrasing at all. It could be changes in like the declaration of martial law, stuff like that. I mean, not maybe literally. But again, martial law just in the way of like this is something that's happening in the environment or in the external world, and you have no control over it, and it will be enforced. Like it is what it is. So, because the Knight of Pentacles for you, maybe because you've already faced death, and in facing death, what didn't kill you made you this masterpiece. That's why you have this like authority, mastery of water, but not everyone does. And this drought, like, it affects more than just you. So while you may be okay, there may be people who, again, it's that realization that you can't help everybody, potentially. Um, the attribute of the present moment is restrictive of free speech. So deeper than the realization that you can't help everybody, you may see like a point or a purpose behind it. So you can only say what you can say. You can only expose the secrets that you can expose, but the application and integration of that information, again, you have no control over. You can try to create guidelines so that people know how to integrate or whatever, but you can't integrate anything for anyone else. Um, and this restriction on free speech, it's feeling like a potential understanding that like maybe there's a like something needs to happen. It's almost one of those like everything happens for a reason, or some things happen for a reason, and as unfortunate as something is, there's like a reason why it's happening. And so while you with your mastery of water can survive the drought and maybe even be comfortable, maybe even thrive in the drought, um, and potentially attract the envy or ire of people because it's like, well, how are you so whatever when we're out here like in the drought and you have this entire oasis? Like you should share, you should share. It almost makes me think of the present motivation to steal an instrument known for music from number two. But anyone who would steal an instrument known for music, it's hard to imagine that they've reached a realization that it's the musician that creates the music and not the instrument, right? Again, it's something that comes from within. And it's almost like if you try to give that information because of the situation and circumstance that some people may be in, they may not be receptive to it. And it's just an understanding that there may be some who are not receptive. Maybe it's a kind of water that you can't just like give within this drought. because again, like we have to give to ourselves until there is a resolution, until there is a greater resolution. So whatever the reason behind the martial law and whatever this trap is, this chilling trap is, until all of that is taken care of and resolved almost like externally, um again, but it's like you found a way to remain internally like really good regardless of what happens on the outside. So unfortunately, it seems like you're the type of person that cares about people. I mean, fortunately, but it's unfortunate because, again, there may be a realization that there is little that you can do for someone else that may be very dear to you. Because this as a friend, and it's just like, I can't give you what you're asking for. You have to give it to yourself. It cannot be given. It's almost like if that water, so water can fall, like the water that falls from the heavens and the water that comes up from the spring, although your mastery over water can call for water, it's almost like if that water were to be taken, especially in the middle of a drought, then it would all like evaporate. Does that make sense? Rather than like after a certain distance, the water just disappears. So you're sitting in a really good position. It seems like you're going to be thriving regardless. And whatever you feel your purpose or mission is, more power to you. I feel like this did kind of sort of fall more on the side of maybe those who will be more envious of what you have than receptive to how you got where you are and motivated to get there themselves. But it feels like there will be those who benefit from your presence. So cool. And now, number 4. I'm actually kind of pleased with how this video is progressing. Honestly, it'll be time for me to start cooking soon because I was a cooking man now. I'm gonna say 202.42 for number 4. 202.42. So if this is where you join me and you don't know what's going on, it's like 202.50 now. Go to the explanation. I have time stamped the explanation for your convenience because I feel like I did a better job explaining it then than if I would have tried to explain it 4 times. Everyone gets the same information at the jump, and then maybe some kind of um, clarifier or whatever as you get wherever. But the same basic information, the same premises is provided to all. So like threes being parallel from top to bottom, I almost want to do 4 in parallel from bottom to top. And so that's what I'm going to do. So the advent of the year of the dragon is the contents of an important archive are being held hostage. There are so many more advent cards, and this is one that we've seen. We've seen a few of these. The contents of an important archive are being held hostage. This was the year of the dragon. This is interesting. It's a question of almost what exactly is being held hostage. So, did like a robber break into an archive? And are they like, if you don't meet our demands, then we're going to burn this archive down to the ground? Or is it information within the archive that the archivists, the librarians, the whoever are keeping from like public knowledge. I'm going to get an aspect for this, for what is being held hostage. Fascinating. So, the contents of the archive are fascinating. Fascinating is such an interesting word for these to be. Fascinating doesn't necessarily have like life or death necessarily. It doesn't have life or death like connotations. It's just like interesting, wildly different from what one may expect. It also depends on who finds it fascinating, right? Fascinating to a layperson is like interesting, cool, kooky, maybe like trivial, but trivial in a way of like it may come up on trivia, but it doesn't necessarily help me in my day to day life, right? Like it's super cool that I know how my car works, but it doesn't necessarily like make me a better driver, even though it could, especially depending on the terrain. But like in general, like it's so cool knowing how this is connected to that, but it doesn't like have any bearing on my life really. But fascinating to like a sage, like Sagittarius, a wizened, educated person. It feels like that level of fascinating could be something that redefines life as we know it. And maybe since the sage almost works more in the theoretical, in the hypothetical, the mental, the fascinatingness, the level of fascination of this could be like more important or significant. And the layperson is more like 3D, or the layperson is more like physical. Like, does this benefit my life in any way? I don't necessarily live in theory and other stuff. I know that if I put my foot on the gas, my vehicle will accelerate. Now, when it's like better gas mileage, cleaner emissions, stuff like that, then the layperson will care. Um, then, like, that's more impactful. Um, but yeah, to the sage, I don't know if this is necessarily Gemini Sagittarius. Because the sage's Sagittarius is the person locked up in the tower, the highly philosophical and that kind of, I guess, educated. I feel like educated is such a loaded word to say. It has a connotation of, it has a potential connotation of some kind of superiority that I don't subscribe to or believe in. I don't believe that just because someone is educated, they're more superior to somebody else. Because it's possible for extremely educated people to be even more out of touch with the real world and the workings of the world. So, and Gemini being more of that like local communal sort of energy, almost being more of the like, okay, well, how does this help me move things in the day to day? Almost on the like the commercial aspect of Mercury, trade and commerce. Anyway, fascinating to the sage could be like this completely redefines how we view the world, and there's a certain level of fascination that could enable like new forms of energy production or use, or like that could actually have like really like groundbreaking implications on reality, where for then the Gemini energy is like you don't have to whatever because reality still works, but if you want to tap into some really other whatever stuff, then here you go. The geniuses in Sag Labs have discovered it, and Gemini. Gemini has a curiosity, I think about it, that wouldn't ignore that. But and not only a curiosity, but it feels like something that's almost like an entrepreneuring, maybe more so than entrepreneuring, a pioneering spirit, with that curiosity that would, you know, bring it to earth in a way that's like, so instead of like a technology being so incredibly expensive that only 3 people in the whole world get to use it, Gemini commodifies in the best way. It makes it accessible to everybody. So now we all have flying cars or teleportation pads or whatever, rather than like only the mega ultra wealthy, because it's something that is so hard to produce or obscure that whatever, Anyway, so that is the future from the perspective of the year of the dragon. The past, from the perspective of the year of the snake, is site of a colonial leader's defeat. Ooh, cool. Let's get an aspect on this site. Famous. Okay. A famous site of a colonial leader's defeat. Or the site of a famous colonial leader's defeat, but it feels like the site of a famous colonial leader's defeat would become famous. So, you know, famous. I want to be famous. I want to be on TV. I don't own the rights. I am not Titus Burgess or Titus Andromeda from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Cool. So we have these. I know this is like way out there, but this is the Hierophant, especially when we're talking about like discoveries or information that literally open us up to new dimensions and sources of energy and stuff like that. And this kind of has an energy that's very similar, I think, to when I use this. Yes, it has an energy that's very similar to the closest to date or most recent to today's date on the Legacy channel video, where it was like the pioneering, excuse me, profiteer, the profiteering entrepreneur, and the like ghostly leader or whatever. Because it feels it's reading like she's giving me archon energy. She's giving me, but maybe not necessarily. Because so in the context of that, it's a little bit more like archon ish in the way that I feel like I've heard people talk about archons. But in the context of like the Ridge of Hunters over here, it's just like seeing beyond the veil in a way. Um, right. I wonder if this archive is the site of the colonial leader's defeat. So it's almost like, let's use the Greek pantheon, for example, right? So in the age of Cronus and the Titans, it was like the golden age. And then the Olympian gods and their comrades in arms defeat the Titans, and they sort of establish a new era. But it's almost like if Mount Olympus itself was an archive. that held a lot of the information, knowing, and technologies of the golden age, an age where people didn't need gods because everything was in the great pantheon from my non extremely educated or even a remotely educated perspective in the way that the story is coming across. It's almost like Mount Olympus itself was an archive of knowledge and technologies from a time where people didn't need gods because the Titans didn't need to be worshipped. Um, but it's all kept in Mount Olympus, like the most guarded, protected home of the gods. They build their home on top of it, and they create a world that is turbulent and chaotic enough that people worship them for a modicum of peace or comfort or whatever. And it's almost like they change the world in some ways, or they just restrict things in ways. But if people had that knowledge or technology, then it's almost like the gods would be made irrelevant because people existed before them. Maybe. I don't necessarily know the whole ordering of when people were created when it comes to the Titans and the Olympian gods. But it's almost like that kind of energy here. Almost like, so the Olympian gods would be the ones that are holding the contents of the archive hostage. Almost. So maybe in the year of the snake, it's almost like, but again, that almost plays into the energy of when I used these last time, I think. And there was like the god that wanted to take revenge on a shrine, but there was like some kind of divine energy that wanted to set the record straight, right? Where the truth isn't only known by the few who either created the story or the few who are the descendants of those who created the story, those who preserve the truth and that like operate in that truth to gain whatever. Anyway, almost like that kind of energy. Um, okay, so next is we'll go with the attribute of the present moment, famous sports team or league. Famous sports team or league is giving me an energy again of just something that makes someone incredibly capable, competitive, like gives a competitive advantage or edge in some kind of way. It's like they're playing the same game. Maybe it could be playing the same game under a different set of rules. It's like, or it's like playing the same game with the same set of rules, but different levels of access to technology or information, right? Let's say it's a challenge of like who can draw the most perfect circle, and you got one person on a chalkboard and another person like using a computer or a calculator to make sure it's a perfect circle, right? They're playing the same game and the rules are the same, but the level of access is different. And it's almost like kind of sort of like the third one, kind of sort of like number three, but different. Because there is also this famous sports team or league is giving me an energy because again, it's going from like this fascinating contents of an important archive that's being held hostage, being the future of the past, and then the past of the future being like the famous site of a colonial leader's defeat, sort of converging. It's almost that energy of like amidst the drought, there are these oases, or there's that like King of Cups that has water, but the whole world is like in a drought. Like, how does that happen? Now, from the perspective of the King of Cups, the King of Cups was initiated, guided through the Year of the Dragon and maybe beyond. Probably before the Year of the Dragon, because the progress in the Year of the Dragon was so stable. Maybe subtle. Subtle is the word that came to my mind. But because the progress was so subtle within the Year of the Dragon energy, being the Knight of Coins, that something had to have started like before then. And so maybe the initiation of the Knight of Coins in the Year of the Dragon was more of like a practical than a like an initiation into the learnings of a knowledge, right? It's almost like there's an initiation that gets you access to this important archive, but then there is an initiation beyond that, which is like a test of how well do you know it, how well can you use it, and are you now clear to like go out into the world and do whatever. So, but in the here, it's more of like there's this famous sports team or league that is like so beyond anything that we know of that it raises questions. It makes them like suspicious. Again, almost like what some may have come to the Knight of Coins from number three, or whoever chose three with. So it's like even with it being withheld at four, three still found access to that knowledge. Intuition, discernment, the divine can the all that is and the collective subconscious of all that ever was and the impressions that it leaves, even without like necessarily the intervention or the voice of the divine, just the impression of something that's been done before, where again, it's almost like it creates ridges, almost like the sword of the Queen of Swords back in the intro. It's like it creates these channels that could be very subtle. It's almost like if you write on a piece of paper and then you like put another piece of paper down and you like go over it with a pencil or whatever, and you can see the impressions that were left before. It's almost like that. You can read the impressions to get to know how something was done. Or sometimes an impression is left and maybe a liquid or something comes and it fills in the impression, or the impression creates a void and you can read it. Um, anyway, so the anchor is a mineral, which is interesting. And no, not the conflict, the engine is wants to get revenge with or on, wants to end the conflict with. Was this not wants to get revenge with on a shrine, wants to end the conflict with? Is this not the engine that we saw with that God or divine energy that was wanting to like set the record straight? Wants to get revenge with a mineral. Interesting. This is almost the opposite now. I mean, it's still similar. So this would be effectively there is a famous sports team or league. There is a person or people who can do the seemingly superhuman or impossible. and they attribute it to something like a mineral. Like, oh, we take this mineral and now we are like supercharged or whatever. And maybe they sell a bunch of minerals. It's like the mineral is a distraction. The mineral is a red herring. It's a red herring, right? Hey Siri, what is a red herring? What is a red herring?
Red is the color at the long wavelength end of the visible spectrum of light, next to orange and opposite violet. This is from wikipedia.org.
Hey Siri, what is a red herring?
A red herring is something that misleads or distracts from a relevant or important question.
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep reading?
No, thank you. The mineral is a red herring. And so, but maybe like people buy into the mineral and they're like, the mineral is not doing, it's the mineral ain't doing for me what it's doing for you, what it's doing for them. This is like building this from the ground up is so interesting, or from the top down is so interesting. So now the conflict here of the snake, but someone they love will pay the price. The advent of the snake, an iconic cultural object, has gone missing. A historical document, artistic masterpiece, or appropriated artifact. A historical document is interesting because the contents of an important archive are being held hostage. A historical document could be something held within that fascinating. The historical document could be the fascinating contents of this important archive that's being held hostage. It reminds me of a show that I watched where there is someone who is undoubtedly the rightful heir to a nation. And there has been a ruling family for years. But a document proves that the rightful heir doesn't belong. The rightful heir is not related to the ruling family. And so there's this whole effort that is done to blame and execute the rightful heir so that it doesn't come out that like they're the rightful heir and like we the ruling family actually have no power. And so like there was a, a whole thing. Oh, because of the important document. The other interesting thing is an artistic masterpiece because 3 was made into an artistic masterpiece by the Year of the Dragon. So again, there's that connection and tie to the third one. But someone they love will pay the price. See, this is where things get weird. Maybe it's the mineral. Maybe the mineral comes at a price. And that's why there's this present motivation to want to get revenge on a mineral. Maybe someone lost someone they love because of a price that was paid to not even like get whatever service or benefit or whatever. The conflict of snake, what our dragon is, but it will mean forever living a lie. There's something else that this reminds me of. Um, it's a show that is no longer on Netflix, but is apparently now on Tubi. The same show where, like number 3, internal circumstance has the power to, if the internal circumstances are right, the external circumstances don't matter. It's that same show. there were, speaking of the Greek pantheon, there were gods who used to be human, but they had killed and stolen the organs of a primordial force to become gods. And then, of course, they hid the truth. This is so weird. I feel like this one goes beyond like you're the dragon and you're the snake. I feel like this one is the one. I feel like there's always at least one where it's like, whoa. And I feel like it's usually the last one or like the next to last one. Um, the origin of this built with blood money, built with blood money and forever living a lie. So again, it plays on that energy of um, the men who elevated themselves to godhood. Now, the real mineral was the organs of that primordial creature that gave them their power. The fake mineral is whatever they sell you to, achieve the same status. That's the lie that they forever have to live and cover up. Was there not? No, number three wanted to expose a secret with the letter. Three was exposing a secret. So it's interesting the connection of three and four. Let's see. So snake. Oh, that fell out on dragon. Up two fell out on dragon. I kind of want to keep these here. This fell out on the dragon bridging to the present moment. This one fell out on the dragon bridging to the future. So dragon to the present moment is the Ten of Pentacles, like on its side. But again, this is almost more of the Archon. Um, put it like that. Again, this like built with blood money, forever living a lie, and this Ten of Pentacles energy being here. The card that came out on the dragon bridging to the future, the contents of an important archive are being held hostage, is the Eight of Pentacles. Eight of Pentacles. I thought I said Eight of Coins for a second. So I was going to clarify Eight of Coins by saying Eight of Pentacles, but I said Eight of Pentacles twice. This is so interesting. On the Legacy channel, we saw the Page of Pentacles and the Knight of Pentacles. That is so weird. As I was just talking, I like heard a phone ring, like a dial tone, but there is no dial tone. The Page of Pentacles had the unenergized pinnacle. The pinnacle was the key. The page had an unenergized pinnacle. The Knight of Pentacles had the energized pinnacle, and the energized pinnacle unlocked the archive art gallery in the Legacy channel. So it's interesting that number three had the Knight of Pentacles, the one with the activated key, and had attained some kind of mastery, the mastery of water. But it's interesting here with the Eight of Pentacles, though, is that these things, it's like they can be mass produced. More can be made. whatever is being held hostage in the archive, it's being held hostage with the assumption that that is all that there is, almost not knowing that more can be made. So, in the case of the one who would steal, in order to attain some kind of godhood, that could be taken back as it was, because if you remove the organ, you remove that person's source of power. Like whatever this iconic cultural object is that's gone missing. Like all of a sudden, one day, somebody's like this famous sports league player, but yesterday they had like zero athletic ability. And there's like, I don't know, a lucky ring or something that they always wear. Well, the ring is this iconic cultural object that's gone missing that imbues them with the power of whatever. They can lose the ring and then be rendered human again. But unlike them, the process that the Knight of Coins that was for three, the process that three went through, that mastery can never be taken. That level of attainment and achievement of divinity or cooperation with divinity to the point of being granted a mastery, that can never be removed because it's not an object that went missing. It's not an instrument that someone stole to try to make some kind of music, because again, it's the musician that makes the music. The instrument is just a tool. This Eight of Pentacles is some kind of energy like mass producing now something. And I think, again, so it's interesting that we have this wants to get revenge with slash on, just like we had for the aspect of the divine that wanted to clear some stuff up. Because that energy is almost here too. Whoever these famous sports people are, whoever is like selling these minerals that honestly don't do what they claim to do. Um, it's like their whole business is about to go up in flame, because I don't know if it's necessarily going to theoretically or metaphorically flood the market, but it's like the real deal, genuine, whatever is about to like enter the chat. And it's something that it's the Eight of Pentacles. It's something that has to be worked towards. It's something that's achieved through effort. Again, like the Knight of Coins that we saw last time in the dedication. Um, it's also interesting because there was like the second initiation, which was basically the initiation into mastery. Okay, you've learned everything in the archive, or you've learned what is for you to learn within the archive. Can you do anything with that information? Rather than the initiation that grants you permission to the archive. And the Eight of Pentacles is the card that bridges the adept and the master. The Eight of Pentacles is like the intern to the master, their time with the master. So at the end of it, theoretically, they should be their own master. And then at the Knight of Pentacles, they refine and hone and like make a name for themselves, where when they reach the 10, they are that like fully embodied master. The nine is like the process of like learning, like your fit or creating a fit, and garnering renown and recognition, right? Because it's pentacles, it has to be like provable. It should have real, physically observable effects and impacts. It's a pinnacle, right? It's not this purely mental, psycho emotional, almost like high or trip of belief, right? oh, I bought this mineral and the mineral is known to do this. And because we believe in the mineral, then yeah, there are some things that may change, but we're not going to get nearly as close to the performance of these professionals in these sports teams and leagues. We may do better, but we're not going to be that good, right? Because again, it's almost like it's purely mental, but there is something like truly, genuinely um, that has the power to truly, genuinely impact the world, 3D, whatever, in this Eight of Pentacles. And you can get there without blood money. Again, what was acquired through blood money will be lost in whatever the retribution that this revenge is coming with. The energy of the year of the snake is the Ace of Swords, which is the truth. The truth of like all of this being made clear or being made plain. I don't necessarily know how this one applies to the 3D or whatever. But again, the whole wanting to get revenge on a mineral, the whole like expose type energy, and then the truth being known in the Ace of Swords. And maybe when the truth is known, the lie is exposed. The blood money that was used to build up whatever, girl, it's I don't know. That's why you just don't. That's why sometimes, even though it may be easier to just do whatever, you don't, because there's gonna come a time and a day and a place where it's time to collect. And it's almost like, so the blood money, Ten of Pentacles, Forever Lie, was borrowed on credit. Even though it was stolen and someone thought they had possession of it because it's been in their possession for however many years, but it's like it was borrowed on credit and there's going to be interest that's charged, and it's an interest that no one can pay. But if you save up your money, build up your resources, and then acquire it and buy it outright, there's no interest to pay. You own it. You, because you put in the time, energy, effort, blood, sweat, tears, whatever, whatever, whatever. It's yours. Again, it cannot be taken when it is like earned. It almost makes me think of, I don't remember his name. I don't remember any name. I think there was a god, again, in the Greco Roman pantheon. There was someone that had been captured by like a king or something. And the king said that he would only free him, whoever got captured, if he taught the king's son everything he knew. And so the king taught everything, or so the whoever was captured taught everything he knew to the king's son. And when it came time for him to be released, he told the king's son to spit in his mouth, I think. And the king's son did it? Question mark. But when he did it, he lost all of that information. But the guy was still free. Obviously, the point isn't like keep him in prison forever. Don't spit back in the mouth or you'll lose whatever. Again, it's how easy it is to lose anything that has been acquired with shady or unscrupulous ways. You can't take what is hard earned and well deserved, but you can collect on what's been borrowed or stolen on credit. And the interest, again, the interest always makes it whatever, but at least I guess you get the time that you enjoyed while you had it, right? Oof. Cool. What's at the bottom of the deck? The Six of Pentacles. That's almost giving like karma today, but it's like earthly karma, which is again that like if something was stolen or taken, then it can be stolen or taken back, right? Because stealing or taking doesn't transfer ownership, even if we may feel like it does. Which is kind of interesting as a concept to think about how someone may like steal something and then feel a sense of ownership over it to the point where it's like if it's then stolen from them, they get like mad or upset or whatever. But at that point, it's just like karma, you know? Like it's not even yours to be mad about, right? Like, since when do you own this? You stole it. Hello? But again, just people being people. All right. So, yeah. Um, it's about time for me to get started. But I will put all the cards back. I'm going to timestamp final cards as 246. And it's going to include the shuffle. The final cards 246. Oh, girl. 246, 10, because I think it's been about 10 seconds. And it's now been 10 seconds. Cool. So I will put these back. Story engine aspects. Boom. Story deck of worlds origin, deck of worlds advent, story engine challenge. Got it. Story engines aspect, deck of worlds advent, deck of worlds origin, conflict, attribute, anchor, and engine. We have an attribute, an engine, an anchor, advent, conflict, origin, tarot, aspects, origin, conflict, advent, tarot, advent, origin. I didn't take the picture of the fourth one. It's fine. For the fourth one, maybe I'll just put a question mark or something. Aspects, conflict, tarot, attribute, engine, anchor, origin, conflict, advent, aspect, tarot, advent, origin, conflict, attribute, anchor, engine, origin, advent, conflict. Cool. So we're going to put the deck of worlds back first. So origin. 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 Number 3, 2, 1. The origin is site of the oldest recorded culture. Interesting. This is interesting for a reason. I feel like I just saw a news article about what's the bottom? Created to keep a promise. Wow. Site of the oldest recorded culture created to keep a promise. I feel like I just saw something about some ancient city or something. And like it's now understood to, like, something's understood to not be what it was thought to have been. And that completely changes the way that we look at something or something. I don't know. I've no idea. All right, attribute 3, 2, 1. Oh, there we go. Known for a plant that only blooms for one day. Is this the same ancient site or whatever? Site of the oldest recorded civilization. I'm going to read it as the same. Known for a plant that only blooms for one day. The plant that blooms for one day is in accordance to a promise. Bottom of the deck, known for neutrality in all conflicts. She's giving like a hub type of an energy, or like a sacred land. And that's why the flower blooms. To preserve the sacredness of that land because it exists between so many different lands almost. All right, 3. Cool. The contents of an important archive are being held hostage. Bottom of the deck, it's in between. People are debating destroying a historic symbol of oppression, and the last knowledge keeper of an ancient tradition is dying. Interesting. The last knowledge keeper is dying, and people are debating destroying a historic symbol of oppression. This, and there is, if you know, you know, there is context to like an actual symbol that was used, a symbol that has come to mean what it hadn't meant before. It came to mean what it currently means. Um, in that, let's say there is the land that was neutral and was decidedly so because of, again, its position in between other lands. It was important for that space to be neutral. Um, and there's a flower that blooms one day a year in accordance with like a promise of that land's neutrality. Now, obviously, as things go from ancient times to modern times, and if that is still honored, it's almost like because it is so pivotal to movement across to access other things, it has gained importance. And where the promise was once made from understanding and acknowledgement, I guess, of the importance of the land and why it remained neutral now, and it's like um, girl, what's the word? It's fine. Now it's like the flower is the symbol of that land, and its people like think that they're better than everybody else. And it's almost like they've maintained that neutrality, but have gained some kind of superiority complex, maybe to the point where they have trespassed onto other lands and transgressed upon others. So now that flower that was originally a promise has become like a symbol of oppression because the people from this land think that they're better or whatever. And the one who would know the truth, the last knowledge keeper of that ancient tradition, is like dying. And it's almost like, so that would be a contents that are held hostage almost by like a lack of knowledge, more so than like intentionally, because the last knowledge keeper is dying. And after the last knowledge keeper dies, there will be no one else who knows. Um, but it feels like that knowledge keeper has some kind of important role in continuing to honor the promise that was made. And so, after the knowledge keeper dies, and if the knowledge dies with that knowledge keeper, and if the promise isn't upheld, then the flower will stop blooming, meaning the symbol of that nation will like fall. And then after the symbol of the nation falls, the very thing that those who once used it as some sign from the divine that they were superior or whatever, because this flower only blooms here at this site on whatever, again, that was because of a promise. And once the promise isn't upheld, then the flower won't bloom anymore. But they will likely lose their life. Oof, big oof. Well, there's a conflict. We actually saw this one in one of the piles, but they will likely lose their life. Okay, complex. I'm going to put you here. I don't remember where you were originally, and that is fine. I think the engines may have been there. That's fine. Doesn't necessarily matter. Engine. Three, two, one. Something fell out. Wants to gain the power of. Bottom of the deck, wants to improve the reputation of, wants to save a loved one with. Feels less relevant, maybe because of low hanging fruit. Wants to gain the power of something. So it's like whatever that flower symbolizes. Again, there's some kind of promise that was made and a promise that was honored, and because of an honored promise, there's some kind of the area like naturally thrived, right? Because of its location. It feels like that wanting to gain the power of something, but likely losing their life to do so. It's like the power was given, the area was blessed because of a promise. To seek that power and not acknowledge or uphold the promise is to invite a force beyond one of human understanding or making, like metaphorically, I guess. Because again, something was only granted because of the promise that was made and the promise that was honored. It's like without that promise, then the thing is like a curse. It's a gift that was bestowed. Um, Not whatever someone may try to make of it. And this could sort of like play into or off of the whole fourth um, pile. Whatever the Ace of Swords is, whatever the revenge because of a mineral is. And it, yeah. It's just like, I feel like for a long time, it may have been difficult to get caught up when playing with the lives of other people. But um, there, I don't know, it's possible to go too far and to do too much, and for a populace of peoples to crash out, as the kids say nowadays, I guess. And then it's like, whoa, it's like, yeah, well, that's why you don't play with people's lives, you know. Again, it's that like blood money. All right. And anchor. 3, 2, 1. Top card is a basement, a keepsake, a letter, and a house. We already saw the letter. The letter was the wanted to expose a letter. It was like with the letter, but anyway. A basement is here. A basement is interesting. I talked about this show recently. I think in the context of the threshold and the dead end, but also actually I think it was in the context of the Ridge of the Hunters, maybe. It was the show of the people who lived. Yeah, it was the Ridge of the Hunters because the Hunters was the organization of the people that explore beyond the walls. Well, in that show, um, there is a truth that is hiding in a basement in that show, right? So they venture beyond the walls, they brave all the dangers, they make it to the basement, they find the truth, and then they discover that they actually live on an island. And on the other side of the water is a world that is completely different to theirs. All that with the thing that was hidden, a keepsake, a letter, all that in the basement of a house. Um, Now, in that show, there was a promise that was made by one individual. And that, I guess, individual did their best to do their like penance. Excuse me. But because of, oh my gosh, I just knocked the whole deck on the floor like a cat just pushed it off. Um, so I guess I'll look at these 5 cards that are left on the table. But because of like a discrimination and like using people that continued into the present, because this promise was made a long time ago. The royal family knows of the promise, but like nobody else does. Nobody else knows anything really. Um, Besides like one character because of inheritance, basically, the inheritance of memory. Um, but anyway, they end up inviting their own destruction. And not only their destruction, but the destruction of the entire world. Because even though that promise was made, that even though the promise was made and then steps were taken to make sure that what could potentially threaten was maintained, it's because of the efforts of some that they ended up unleashing judgment upon themselves, you know, and it cost them their lives. So to try to gain that power without acknowledging that promise. We have the Nine of Pentacles, the Five of Wands, the Five of Cups, the Seven of Wands, and the Six of Pentacles that remain on the table. The Nine of Wands is the one that has attained that mastery, that is in the process of building their brand, right? It feels like that level of mastery itself, almost like for the third one, puts them at odds with others through things like envy, jealousy, insecurity, whatever, right? Potentially. It feels like that's the Five of Wands and Five of Cups. It feels like because of the Five of Cups, because of someone feeling like the Five of Cups, maybe acknowledging more what they've lost than what they still have. This could also be someone who's dedicated to like misery. Like they will never acknowledge the two cups that still stand because they feel like they've already lost so much. It's because of this that they turn combative against the Five of Wands. And it feels like it's the Five of Wands rather than the Five of Swords because they have no power to actually hurt this Nine of Pentacles energy. Maybe a bruise, maybe, but they have no power to actually hurt or harm this Nine of Pentacles energy. Now, the Seven of Wands and Six of Pentacles feels like a little bit of an ego trap. This feels like the relative. So, this would be the Nine of Pentacles. These six wands down here would be from the Five of Wands, Five of Cups, right? They have this advantage. There is nothing that this energy can do to really hurt or harm. Again, a bruise, maybe, but nothing significant. But it's like this Nine of Pentacles energy gets to choose when and where it invests with the Six of Pentacles. And it feels like it also gets to choose when and where and if to like um to reclaim an investment, right? Like the whoever was forced to give all of their knowledge to the son of the king. But before they left, they got it all back. And again, it feels like a little bit of an ego trap because of that elevation. And because the Nine of Pentacles is well off enough to give when they find it or feel it appropriate. And again, from the Five of Cups and Five of Wands is almost this entitlement. Maybe the Five of Cups, Five of Wands sees the Nine of Pentacles giving or investing in certain areas, and it's like, okay, well, why not me or whatever? An aspect. We'll do an aspect of the Nine of Pentacles first. Cheery. Cheery, blessed, surprising, cut rate. Cheery is the one that came out. Cheery, Nine of Pentacles, and we'll get an aspect for the Five of Cups. I'll look at whatever one's on the bottom. Forgotten. The Five of Cups is forgotten. Or maybe the Five of Cups feels forgotten. And maybe that, of course, breeds some ill feelings. I think I'm going to put these here. I'm going to put the engines here. So it's engine, conflict, anchor, aspects. And then I'm going to pick up the rest of these cards, I guess. Am I doing that on camera? Give me 1 second to pick these cards up, I guess. I don't know. I mean, and maybe it's because the Five of Cups feels forgotten in one way that they don't allow themselves to be remembered or seen or acknowledged in other ways. It's almost like someone who may constantly chase the validation or approval from someone who will never give it to them. Maybe because they can't, or maybe because they won't. But because they constantly chase validation or approval from one individual, they don't allow themselves to receive it from anyone else. And so that's that Five of Cups energy where it will never acknowledge that Two of Cups energy. And at that point, like, what is the Nine of Pentacles to do? There is nothing that can be given to someone who won't acknowledge what they have. Like, there is nothing that can be given to someone who won't acknowledge what they have to make them see anything they haven't seen. Four of Cups in reverse at the bottom from the cards that I picked up. With the Ace of Swords in reverse, the Ten of Pentacles in reverse, the Three of Cups in reverse, Strength in reverse, King of Cups in reverse, Wheel of Fortune in reverse, Ace of Cups in reverse, Two of Swords in reverse, the Fool in reverse, Emperor, Six of Swords, Nine of Cups, King of Swords, King of Pentacles, Eight of Swords, Eight of Cups, Three of Wands, Knight of Pentacles, all in the reverse. Upright as the Empress. I want to put these all upright real quick. Excuse me. Boop boop. Boop 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 boop. Boop boop. Boop 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 boop. Boop boop. Boop boop. Boop boop. Boop boop. I'm trying to think if I need the saucepan. I don't think I need the saucepan because I'm pretty sure we make it in the pot. We make it in the pot. I'm pretty sure we make it in the pot. Or maybe we use both. I don't remember. All right. Final card from the now together, now unified 8-Bit Fantasy Tarot. Two cards just flipped over. I think it was two. I saw the Three of Cups. The Three of Cups, Strength, the King of Cups, and the King of Swords. Have flipped over. Bottom of the deck is the Hanged Man. Oh, goodness. It feels like this King of Swords, King of Cups, and especially with the King of Cups looking at the King of Swords, this is the head and the heart on the same page. Maybe someone used to be in the Five of Cups energy, but now the Three Cups are upright. And not only are they upright, they're being used, right? And we have the Strength card here. It's maybe almost because of the Strength card that someone has to get over the pain of being forgotten or feeling forgotten in order to again be seen by individuals who have the capability of seeing them. And maybe with the Hangman at the bottom, again, it's that energy of like, there's nothing that we as people can necessarily do for someone else to get them to reach that point. Now, the divine works in mysterious ways and can orchestrate all kinds of things so that people, this almost makes me think of number two, so that people reach that point within themselves where they're ready to be open to experiencing something different or whatever. But it feels like the Hangman is the reason for a pause. And what ends this pause is the Three of Cups being upright. But the Three of Cups don't go up. It feels like this isn't the Three Cups that were spilled. This is a different Three Cups. I don't know. All right, well, I hope you have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way you find. Who was this for, girl? I don't know. Maybe takeaways. I feel like they're as much. Okay, well, I kind of talked about it on this channel before. I feel like as much as we love to shift timelines and do stuff like that, we almost discredit the power of continuity or the fact of continuity or the presence of continuity. I'll say the presence of continuity rather than the fact of continuity in terms of like what experiences in life prepare us for later in life, right? Like the planets have the planets have smooth transitions. Like a planet doesn't go from Aries to Libra to Gemini to Taurus to Cancer to Sagittarius to Pisces. Like if it's prograde or direct, it goes from Aries 1 through 12 to Pisces. If it's retrograde, it'll go the other direction. And so, like, it feels like there's supposed to be a smoothness and almost like a gradualness to a lot of things in life. And it's not this jerky shift. Like, it's almost like it's supposed to be possible to walk or to make a smooth motion rather than like constantly feeling like we have to like jump and shift and jump and shift and jump and shift. All that to say that there are experiences in life, again, that we have that prepare us for future experiences in life. There are things that we cultivate that we then at some point learn to master or become adept at before we find ourselves in a mastery of those things. And it's like it's not to discredit all of the things that we are given and that we have the potential and possibility to gain throughout the experiences that we have and that we've had. Like it feels like there's a potential. And maybe it's because of where I'm sitting in my own life that I feel this way. But it feels like there is a potential for like the year of the dragon to have prepared us, positioned us in some way to receive all of what the year of the snake has to offer. And there are many ways to complete something if we look at 2025 as a year of completion, right? Endings are beginnings. So feels like the year of the dragon and the karma of the year of the dragon. If the 8 year is a year of karma, was to prepare us for both endings and beginnings. Beginnings of things that we desire and the endings of things that we no longer wish to experience. But without taking from those experiences, it feels like we have a relative ability to make those endings and beginnings, like to make endings final and to make beginnings permanent, right? So as something begins, it continues. It's not like a false start, or as something ends, it stays closed. Anyway, I don't know. All right. Well, I hope you have an amazing whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey way you find. And until next time, I don't know. Keep on, keep it on, and may fortune's will turn ever in your favor. And may you have the fortitude to stand up to any challenge, the capacity to receive your heart's truest desires, especially the good ones, and the presence to not be overwhelmed but also, the space to appreciate and to feel gratitude. Um, yeah, I think that's it.